And take a look at what's coming up a bit later tonight on African Perspective, kicking off at 9 p.m. The show dealing with the closure of UN outreach programs on the continent of Africa as funds dry up. News anchor and presenter Tshepiso Makwetla joining me now. So not only South Africa, cost cutting, not only the SABC, SOEs, but the UN, but huge ramifications, I'm sure.
So the UN facing its worst financial crisis in about 10 years. The UN General Assembly and including all UN facilities having to shut down, being owed so much money by country member states, something to the tune of 1.4 billion US dollars yet to be received by the UN according to its assessed regular budget. So that includes things like the UN's financial contributor, the US, that also owes the UN about $1 billion US. So we'll be speaking to the regional head in Southern Africa to find out more about their operations on the continent, to find out what they've been able to do for the continent. So we'll be looking at the UN DOC cooperation with South Africa. So that is a support that the government of South Africa gets, especially with regards to sustainable development goals. We're talking about how they're helping in terms of corruption, money laundering, and reducing the proceeds of crime. And of course, we'll be also talking about trafficking in persons, but we'll be talking as well about UNAIDS. You'd know that PEPFAR is one of the biggest funders of health initiatives here in Southern Africa. But we'll talk about multilateralism, multipluralism, and find out what the UN's role is. But as you know, there is the Russia-China summit that is underway in Sochi. So we'll be talking about that. 40 African heads of states represented there, including President Cyril Ramaphosa. With Botswana going to the elections today, so we understand the core has been heeded for people to come out and vote, so we'll give you the latest update.
And very quickly on Russia, I mean, we've seen it with China before saying, consider us, because the West always puts conditions on its support for Africa. And Vladimir Putin saying exactly the same thing, basically.
Well, I mean, that creates for a very interesting dynamic, especially Russia and China as veto members of the UN Security Council have often pretty much stood by each other on various decisions, but you would know that they are in competition on trade and other issues on other parts of the continent and the world. So we'll see how that pans out, Francis.
All right, thank you very much. Catch Tshepiso Makwetla with the African Perspective at 9 o'clock tonight. All right, we continue with the